Hello, podcast listeners. I am excited to share with you another episode. Today, we're going to talk about shame and specifically a dynamic that I am calling shame transfer. It's a thing. I'm inventing it. No, it exists. I'm just naming it. But first, I want to invite you to subscribe to this podcast as well as my YouTube page as well. I also would invite you to share this episode with a friend and to give me a Google review or an Apple review as well. And I want to let you know that today's content does have a trigger warning because I will be discussing some very potentially triggering topics like incest and rape. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about what I am calling shame transfer. So virgin sacrifice, what is it all about? We've all seen the movies, maybe they're older now, where it's a Hollywood trope where the young virgins are thrown into the bubbling volcano in order to appease the gods who are always angry, right? Or there's the Hebrew concept of the scapegoat, in which the collective shame and sin of the community is transferred onto a blameless goat who is then exiled outside the community. Why does every culture seem to have a legend of something like this, where there's an appeasement of a deity or deities through the surrender of something untainted, which symbolically removes the shame of the people? And how is our modern culture still participating in this ritual, unbeknownst to us? I remember in the 90s when the AIDS epidemic became a global pandemic, and I was in grad school my first time studying global health and public policy. And I remember learning that it is common belief, or was common belief at that time, in some countries, for men infected with AIDS to think that having sex with a virgin would cure them of their AIDS, that it would cleanse them, which of course is hogwash. And of course, this fueled the AIDS pandemic to spread even more, unfortunately. But where does this idea come from? Why is there a human inclination to believe we can somehow cleanse ourselves by transferring our shame onto something more pure than ourselves? Now, I'm going to say something very disturbing, but true. I have learned as a therapist that incest is far more common than I would have ever believed. I have worked with and met many men and women who have experienced incest, and it is unfathomable to me how not uncommon it truly is. How can something so evil continue to thrive even in our modern Western culture? What fuels this to perpetuate? Here's my theory. Incest and rape, I believe, are a type of shame transfer where the perpetrator temporarily experiences a sense of cleansing from their own shame by offloading it onto someone else. It serves the same psychological function as an ancient virgin sacrifice or a Hebrew scapegoat ritual. Additionally, the perpetrator, who himself was a victim of someone else's oppression, psychologically relates to his victim the same way he relates to his own young self who was victimized or oppressed, which is with hatred. As perpetrator now, instead of victim, he finally feels powerful, which gives him a sense of mastery over what happened to him. Rape and incest are a way for people who have been victimized or oppressed to feel like they are no longer victims, and so dispel their own shame from that experience. It is a way in which the perpetrator is attempting to work something out to reclaim their own soul, if you will, in the worst and most evil way possible, at the expense of the soul of someone else. But the sad truth is, by doing this, both parties lose their soul. When we objectify other people in any way, we lose a part of our soul. And this is not limited to sexual violation. When I allow myself to view other humans only as obstacles to what I want, I'm doing the same thing on a different level. When I view other drivers on the road as subhuman because I'm forced to share the road with them, or the people in the checkout line at the store, I become a perpetrator in my heart and in my soul. When I desire others to listen to what I have to say, impatiently waiting for them to finish talking so I can take my turn, what is the condition of my soul? Or when I want to look hot to feed my narcissistic supply, when I look good and I walk into a public space and turn heads, how am I not objectifying others to serve my desire? As a therapist, I can see each of my clients as a beautiful human that needs my full attention and attunement, and give this to them for the full 50 minutes, or I can let my mind drift to what I'm going to eat for lunch, prioritizing myself over them. It's an either or. I can either view my client as a means to a paycheck or as a precious creature, but I cannot do both. The crazy thing is, when I stop objectifying others but regard them as precious, I become more alive, not less. My soul blossoms in conjunction with the souls of those around me. Because the truth is, we are far more connected than any of us would ever believe. The famous psychiatrist Carl Jung talked about what he believed was a collective unconscious that all humans share. But what if instead of us sharing a collective unconscious, what if instead we actually shared a collective soul? What if humanity is like a flower consisting of many different petals that can only bloom together? What if the way to reclaim my soul is to learn to love others by seeing their inherent worth and value, which starts with seeing and honoring my own? When I allow myself to do this, I'm able to connect to my anger. So when a potential perpetrator attempts to deflect his shame onto me in any way, there's an invisible force field between us that is impenetrable. And I am able to say, I see what you're attempting to do, and it's not going to work. Your shame belongs to you, and only you can be responsible for disposing of it properly. Don't you dare attempt to put it on me. I will not allow you to objectify me, nor will I allow myself to objectify you. Let's stay human. This is how we can put an end to the age-old ritual of virgin sacrifice and reclaim our soul. Right here, right now. Please join me. Thanks for listening today.